But going back to the social stuff with sharing stuff online, because I know we spoke about it before. In terms of the importance, because it's quite there's a lot of like oversaturated things of people oversharing sometimes. But like, what's your perspective on the importance of us designers being able to share our work? How important is it to not only getting work but being part and becoming part of the design community?
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing for me. Like, I think it all goes back to like Dribble. That was like the first time, apart from like obviously way back in the day when I would be on like design forums or whatever. I don't know if you were on Talk Freelance at all.
I wasn't, no.
No. So there was this forum called Talk Freelance, and that's where I would just share my work and you would get your feedback. It would be like unsolicited feedback, but it was like encouraged, you know. But I think that's where Dribble kind of took it to a new level, because they then added that aspect of you can get paid for sharing this work. So if you just share your work and somebody likes that, they'll hire you for it. So I don't know. I think like as a designer, it's obviously the most important thing. Obviously, everybody's different. You know, I think people sometimes are a bit scared to share their work because they maybe think it's not good enough, or they maybe don't think like, you know, it's like good in their eyes. But I feel like you're only going to get better by encouraging that feedback and getting other people's feedback and other people's opinions. And that can be, you can go macro with that. Like, you know, people will obviously comment if you're posting like a website design or whatever. You know, people will comment on the typography, people talk about the colours, whatever. You know, all that feedback, it's just what you do with that feedback, whether you
comes down to the right kind of character though, right? Because if you need to be in the right kind of mindset to be able to know how to take that feedback, what to take,
of course,
also what to ignore.
That's what I think is the hardest part. Like that's definitely the hardest part, especially if you're kind of starting early on in your career and you're not kind of used to like sharing your work, or you know, I think that's like the biggest kind of hurdle to kind of overcome is like, you know, what are people going to say? You know, like what's the worst that somebody could say? You know, like you just, I don't know, like I
you don't like it, move on.
Yeah,
kind of thing, right?
Or you take that on board and you maybe look at their work, and if they've got work of like a good standard, you know,
or
like
if they don't,
or if they don't, yeah, I mean, you just take it how it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think like definitely, I think it's important. I think it's like one of the most important things. Like, been doing it now for years. You know, I think like I still do it. I still share my work.
But it comes across, and the thing I've noticed about it is, even especially with the people with the kind of the larger side of the following, it's just natural. It's not like it's very clear who's got an intent, who's trying to gain like interaction or trying to encourage comments, you know, like, you know, comment this and you can get this, that kind of, I don't know what they called it. Is it like kind of engagement harvesting or something like that?
I mean,
right?
In Twitter now, all the algorithm stuff, it's like, it's just so noisy, you know. You've probably noticed it yourself, but it's like,
playing the algorithm, isn't it?
You're playing the algorithm. Like, I actually read a Twitter thread yesterday or the other day, and it was like I think some guy was just basically saying like he'll post like a design, but then he'll say how much that design cost, like how much a client paid him for that work, you know, and the reason why he does that is because like he gets so much more engagement for seeing that dollar amount. You know, it's like almost as if Twitter push.
It's like a Mr. Beast thumbnail kind
of
thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, but I don't know. It's like, I think you can then come off as a bit, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fine line, because like you get, again, what we spoke about before in terms of these different, how people kind of want to be perceived online, how they sell themselves. They sell themselves as just as a multidisciplinary kind of designer, or I work with company X, or I run a design subscription service, or it's a deliverable based thing, like a landing page cost X, you can have it custom built, developed on Framer, Webflow, whatever, right? So people being upfront about their costing. I know the studies actually show if you are upfront, like people know what they're going to pay for something, it's obviously going to convert way better because the transparency is there.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times people don't actually know what they actually need. That's what I find anyway. So even though it may encourage kind of less leads, if people think they're getting something for X amount, but they don't actually know they need it or don't need that, they need something else, all of a sudden they associate with what you're consulting them, what they actually need to be associated with that same cost. then you get into this whole kind of cycle of, oh, I thought it was, so it's kind of like what kind of like work you want to be doing. So it's tricky, but people being upfront about pricing online, I think, internationally, I think people are really intrigued about what people actually charge, and it's that kind of that thing of like, can you speak about money? How much I actually charge people? How much we charge
taboo
people?
subject.
Yeah. So I think having the kind of the
of course that
cojones to actually
of course
say,
that transparency is good, definitely. I think like you kind of take it with a pinch of salt as well, because like I'm just speaking from like what I see on Twitter, and the design Twitter is like very, it's like this bubble, and like you're only seeing that part of it. But yeah, obviously there's like there's designers that factor that in to like maybe get that engagement, which then leads to more projects or whatever. But I've never done anything like that.
No, but that's interesting, because you're right. It very much is the design bubble. So even like the following you build is very much within that design community, right? And then obviously the algorithm kind of encourages designers, right? So that's kind of what it will be.
Yeah.
So how much does that bleed, do you think, to actual potential prospects, right? I guess it's actually, from what I can see, prospects who care about design or have a link to that design community, rather than completely cold kind of leads. If you like.
I think it's fascinating, because I think the algorithms change so much on X over the last like 3 or 4 years. Like you used to, I mean, I don't know, if speaking like me personally, like I've just always kind of just shared my work, and I've just, on top of that, I've always just kind of gave that kind of educational, that kind of educational aspect to it as well, of like, here's what I did with this work, which again is kind of led to people contacting me and reaching out to me because they like that aspect of it. Like clients will reach out and they'll be like, I really enjoyed how you like kind of spoke through that entire design process, and it's almost like a kind of mark of approval for a client to say like, okay, this person can actually do this sort of work. It's like
a justification of like expertise.
Basically. Exactly. So it's like, I think if you're sharing your work, just to go back to that, like if you're sharing your work, I think like that educational part of it, like kind of teaching, like, or not even teaching, but like just sharing how you would do something, because the way I do something, you might do completely different. Like there's more than one way to do something.
It's a perspective, isn't it? It's different.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think like the way that you've learned to do something is maybe I've learned to do it a completely different other way. And I think that is like I think that's like the kind of golden kind of nugget on Twitter, especially if you're given sort of kind of tips and tricks on like design techniques and things like that. I think that's like a big part of it. I think like as if you're kind of open and willing just to kind of share your process and not gatekeeping anything, I think that's like
but it's just being real.
Good thing. Of course.
It's just being organic, right? Because again, you can kind of tell the people who are like, right, I schedule this at 8 o'clock every Monday to do this. Yeah. Tuesday, everything. It's apparent. And everyone, like, I think most people can kind of detect and see it, but just being natural, not careless, but like you're just openly sharing things, looking for feedback on this, or even interacting on other people's things, right? Just giving real feedback as a value exchange.
Of course,
right?
Definitely, 100%. It's because like, that like the person that you might give feedback to, they might share something one day that you'd never know how to do. Like honestly, that's one of the main reasons why I use Twitter, is because like you try and follow these designers who are creating like really good work, really creative stuff, and like I said, like they might come out with these educational kind of like tweets on like how to do a certain thing on a certain design that they've posted, and it's just like a golden kind of technique that you've maybe been needing for like your own project.
Or there's a plugin that exists, like you just told me about.
The plugin, that's a perfect example.
Right, like for example, I know it sounds really, really silly, and it's very much a designer thing. You could easily spend like 20-30 minutes on getting this shadow for these tabs, right? But then you've got to see that plugin, that beautiful shadows plugin, to go, okay, cool, that gives me a starting point to get these multiple layers to then work with. Exactly. It's a 5-minute task, right? So just silly little things like that. But that's what the design community is for.
Exactly.
Them little nuggets. So if people stop sharing and people aren't, it's just one of them things. But yeah, and what was the other thing I was going to say? So going on to like kind of how that bleeds into potential prospects and leads.